Hi everyone, welcome to our event. This event is brought to you by DataTalks.Club, which is a community of people who love data. We have weekly events, and today is one of such events. If you want to find out more about the events we have, there is a link in the description. Go there, click on that link, and you will see all the events we have in our pipeline. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This way you will get notified. You will not miss any of the future events like this one today. And last but not least, very important, we have an amazing Slack community. If you're not there, you're missing out. Join us and you'll get to hang out with other data enthusiasts. During today's interview, you can ask any question you want. There is a pinned link in the live chat. So click on this link, ask your question, and we will be covering these questions during the interview. That is the introduction. Now I will open the questions we prepared for you. Just 1 second. Okay. I think I'm ready. Do you think you're ready? Okay. So this week, we'll talk about improving our world with analytics. And we have a special guest today, Parvathy. Parvathy is a CTO at Analytics for a Better World, nonprofit organization aiming to use analytic techniques to contribute to sustainable development goals. And she holds a professional doctorate degree in data science from Eindhoven University of Technology. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Alexei.
Yeah, so the questions for today's interview were prepared by Johanna Bayer. Thanks, Johanna, for your help. And also, I would like to thank Adonis Stellas for introducing us and introducing me to Parvathy. So thanks a lot for that. And let's start. Before we go into our main topic of improving our world with analytics, let's start with your background. Can you tell us about your career journey so far?
Yeah. So I started in 2007 in India. I studied my bachelor's in electrical and electronics engineering. And after completing the bachelor program, I really wanted to work in renewable energy sector because, with my background in electrical and electronics, it was a obvious choice for me to go into renewable sector because I was also very passionate about sustainable development. At that point, even though I didn't know the depth and width of this field, being a very young graduate. So I did a master's in energy management and climate change technology. I realized that collecting and using data is becoming more and more prominent in this field. And I started learning a lot of modeling, simulation, data analysis, specifically in the energy management sector. And I started working in India itself. So I worked in research and development throughout in a few research institutes in India, predominantly working with solar photovoltaics and in the data side of that. I saw a really good job opportunity in Singapore at that point at the National University of Singapore, where they were collecting a lot of data from cross-climatic photovoltaic systems and analyzing it. So I jumped at that opportunity to learn more about data science, and I applied and I got in. So I worked there for almost more than 2 years. And then I realized data is not just usable in renewable energy sector. It can be used for other fields in sustainability as well. And I realized I do not have a education in data science. So I decided to pursue an education there as well. So I moved to Netherlands. I pursued a professional doctorate program in TU Eindhoven, and I'm based currently in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. And after graduation, I started working in the public sector. So I started freelancing for World Bank and United Nations, specifically UNDP in India, on a series of sustainability projects, leading the data part of it across healthcare, transportation, infrastructure, and others. And last year, the University of Amsterdam, together with some private sector players, decided to set up this Analytics for a Better World Institute. And they were looking for a CTO. And thanks to my good luck, I got the offer, and last year I started working with them. So I still continue to consult for both World Bank and UN on a series of projects, but majority of my time I work as a CTO there, and that's basically my career journey.
Interesting. What do you do there as a CTO?
Basically what Analytics for a Better World does is we connect nonprofits with research and private sector expertise. So not just organization, but with expertise. So what we see is that many nonprofits have questions that sometimes require deep research, but in many cases, they require things to be set up, scaled, develop tools, dashboards, visualization. So for that, but they internally may not have the capability. So what we do at Analytics for Better World is try to make this connection and start projects for nonprofits, either research projects or implementation and analytic projects. I lead some of them. I help in brainstorming, ideating, coming up with digital solutions. Also, we try to understand the maturity of the nonprofit. And based on that, we create a tech and a tool set, because with not every nonprofit, you can directly go to machine learning and deep learning. You need to start smaller, iterate fast, because that's the only way we can drive digital transformation. So we start from the beginning, we ideate, we brainstorm, we understand the maturity. We have a long-term partnership kind of a model of working with nonprofits. And I deal with most of the technical stuff, data part. We have a managing director who looks at more the business development, making partnerships work, way of working, etc. So I sometimes lead data projects, sometimes lead brainstorming workshops. I even create a curriculum for training and upskilling nonprofits and others.
That's a lot of information I'm trying to know. So what you do is you connect nonprofit organizations. So you help nonprofit organizations with analytics, right? And that means you set up all this technical infrastructure, and even before that, you do some brainstorming sessions with them, right? To understand what they actually need, what kind of tools they need. So maybe we can start with these brainstorming sessions. Like, let's say a nonprofit organization comes to you and says, oh, help us with digital transformation, right? So how do you start that? How do you work with them? What things you talk about in these brainstorming sessions?
Usually we try to understand the different levels of the organization. So let's say we can summarize into 3 categories. So we have executives who make like long-term strategy plans for the organization. Then there are like managers or project leads or program leads or organization department leads who put together teams, who define and deliver and implement projects. Then there is hands-on practitioners who are actually implementing projects. And not all nonprofit project is a data project. Their goal is, let's say, to deliver humanitarian assistance or to make sure that schools in the neighborhood have access to food, electricity. So their goal is totally different, but they might have a data component in their project. So during the brainstorm, what we try to understand is, at these different levels in the organization, what level of data maturity is already existing. Then we try to understand what are the things that is required in their strategy for them to grow in data science. Do they really need to invest in resources? Do they need to invest in infrastructure, like you said, or do they need to invest in a long-term strategy and plan? So we try to understand this through a series of interviews with different groups within the team or organization. And then we try to come up with a roadmap. But also not every nonprofit is the same. Some nonprofits come to us with a really good already defined problem statement. Then we help them implement the solution for it. So it totally depends on at what level of maturity the nonprofit is, and do they already have a problem statement, yes or no. So yeah, I would say it depends on the nonprofit, but this is this gives you a flavor of how those brainstormings work.
Mm-hmm. Just curious if you, I don't know if you can tell us or not. Maybe you can just pick an example without naming maybe organizations, or if you can name, that would be even interesting. And then a project that you did for them recently, and would be interesting to see like how you took it like from, from the start and then worked on that, like defined this roadmap, did this brainstorming, defined roadmap, and then found a solution.
Yes, definitely. I can give you one example. So this is not a direct example of a project because, yeah, we cannot divulge all the information due to privacy and others. But we recently, or last year, later part of October, we started an academy where we trained nonprofits, and it was a open free program where we invited nonprofits from around the globe to apply for practitioners. So we received more than 340 applications from around the globe. And from that, we selected 43 fellows or nonprofit data practitioners to work with us and go through an 8-week program. And in the first few weeks, they did some data science courses. Then in the second half, we did brainstorming with them. In your nonprofit, let's try to identify a problem that you would like to solve. And I will give one example from the United Nations Environment Program in Nairobi, Kenya. So we worked with a fellow from there who had a problem that in Kenya, waste management is a huge issue. And what they were seeing on the ground was that there were not enough waste collection points throughout the city. They wanted to use analytics and optimization models to understand how can we improve this situation. So what we did is we paired them up with mentors and who are already experienced data scientists. And we paired them up with some of our trainers from university doing some optimization research because it requires mathematical modeling as well. And they jointly did a very simple proof of concept pilot where they used data what is openly available to say population densities. They overlaid the road network data and others to say this is where you need to establish more waste collection points. But then it was an 8-week program, of course, and the brainstorming came up with a really solid idea to take forward. And now what we are doing is we are having a student plus a small team supporting them to scale this up. Because that was a proof of concept, it worked fine as a test case, but now we are working with them to implement it as a proper solution, even using, for example, satellite imagery to identify large-scale dumping grounds of waste to see maybe in those areas you need not just data solution, but you might need more advocacy for waste segregation and plastic waste collection. So this is one example where we started with just a brainstorming and an idea. We went all the way to actually now developing a solution. And I just want to make this very clear. The data part is just one part of the solution. You have the other parts, like you need to have public officials, you need to have advocacy for better data collection, you need to have advocacy for on-the-ground training for people to actually do the segregation. So the data part is helping the officials reach there, but there is much more beyond that to get the solution to work and scale.
Yeah, that's and probably, I don't know if I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But I expect that the level of maturity when it comes to data in these organizations in the public sector is probably lower compared to, I don't know, a typical startup, internet startup, right? A typical internet company. Is it the right observation? What kind of level of data maturity do you usually see in these organizations?
So it also depends on nonprofits. There are some nonprofits or development sector organizations that have really good maturity in terms of digital. They have like a data science team. They might already have data scientists working with them from other organizations. They might have research teams. But if you look at the overall landscape, yes, there is a resource gap. There is a lot of need for data scientists in this sector, and the sector also have huge competition with the private sector, right? Because private sector have a lot of need for data scientists as well, and then the data scientists have an option to choose either to work in a public or a private sector company. And in many cases, what I see is in a nonprofit, data is not their first order of business. Like I said before, their main goal is not to collect and analyze data, but their goal is something else, and data is one part of it. So you need also data scientists who have that kind of affinity to work with them, who understands the big picture and not just start developing machine learning every time they see some data set, but to understand where to contextualize it. So there is definitely a resource gap, and there is a huge demand. So this is where I think I mentioned before from our analytics, the academy that we set up. It was our first time setting up an academy, and we are a new organization. We do not have that much visibility yet. We do have a lot of partners and nonprofits working with us, but if you look at it, we are relatively new. So even then, we received so many applications from top organizations around the world. So it really shows that there is a need. And one more thing is, it was a free program, and usually free educational programs, the dropout rate is high, and the retention, because it's an 8-week program, there can be very less number of people who actually graduate. But that problem we did not have at all, because we really looked at the motivation, and the fellows were motivated throughout the program. And yeah, we had really high retention rate and attendance, plus the program completion rate. So yeah, I have to say, extremely motivated resources who are existing, but there is a huge skill gap. Yes.
How do you solve this skill gap? Because I imagine that, like, if you compare the public sector with the private sector, that I suspect that the usual internet companies who are in the private sector, they probably can pay more, right? And then it's kind of hard to compete, because like people who, I don't know, graduate from university, or people who are already experienced, they might want to go there because already data maturity is maybe better there, like there's better compensation, and other things, right? So how do you actually, I don't know, manage to close this gap, manage to find people who want to work in the public sector, who want to contribute? Yeah, so how do you do this?
What we see, at least, is that nowadays young people are extremely driven by purpose, not always financial benefits alone. And I do not, I have worked both in private and public sector, and I wouldn't speak for the rest of the world, but sometimes you, when you are working, especially in public sector, you get that sense of purpose much more than when you are working in a private sector company. It's not always the same for all companies, disclaimer here, but what we try to help, and I think one organization alone cannot solve this problem. It is a huge problem, and we need partnerships, and we need like a combined effort from different organizations to actually achieve this. But I can talk about what we try to do to help. So we have Analytics for a Better World courses, both here at University of Amsterdam and MIT. Actually, our Science to Impact co-director is currently in Boston giving that course. So we do this course both at bachelor level and master's level. And this is for, let's say, training new young people to know that there is this field. So everybody is not aware that there is this stream that they can go after they do a program in data science, and also to get them excited that the problems are actually quite mathematically challenging as well. It's not straightforward problems that we have to solve. It's quite mentally and
like this one, the one you mentioned about the waste management, right? So it's like, it's a very difficult problem. Like, where do you exactly put these waste collectors, right? It's a difficult modeling problem.
Yeah, it is, and it's very exciting to solve it. You know, it's not just from the social perspective, but as a technical person, I get challenging problems. I get really excited. So we, as an organization, want to inspire young people to realize that this is definitely possible, and there are these interesting problems to solve out there. Secondly, we also see that a lot of nonprofits already have people working with data. We want to upskill them, and plus, we want to get organizations also to invest in improving their data maturity, because like you said before, a lot of data scientists need to feel that they are working in a more mature organization to understand that how they can contribute, and they need to have all the tools and techniques and support to develop these solutions, right? So that's exactly why I mentioned these 3 levels. So we have executives, we have managers or analytics translators, very commonly used word. Then we have data science practitioners. So at Analytics for a Better World, we have an academy. And through academy, we last year hosted a program for practitioners, which is hands-on data science skills. This year, we will repeat that cohort. Plus, we are adding a new course for analytics translators. And in the pipeline for next year, we have plans to host a program for executives as well. But we need some more preparation time for it, because for practitioners, we have 8 weeks. For analytics translators, it's going to be a shorter program. And for executives, it have to be 2 days or so, because getting them engaged for more. So the curriculum requires more research, and that's exactly what we are doing now. We are planning to interview a lot of executives who are working in the nonprofits to develop their curriculum. It is also difficult to set up a curriculum for them, because if you look at, I mean, you probably know, there is Coursera, Udemy, there is so much data science content out there, but how do we tailor it for nonprofits, and how do we tailor a curriculum which speaks to them and their language? It's also not very easy. So we are also learning in the process. Last year was a success and we are very happy for that, but we can still improve, and we are working on doing much research into developing such a curriculum for these three levels within organizations.
So as I understood, like maybe in summary, you solve this skill gap by education, and you educate people at different levels. You start with students from universities like MIT and University of Amsterdam, but then you also work with the companies, upskilling people there on all the three levels that you mentioned. And I'm wondering, so you create a lot of educational content. Is any of this content publicly available? Do you have like maybe courses from MIT or University of Amsterdam somewhere in public?
So we are huge proponents of open source, as you can probably imagine. That's the whole purpose of this. So whatever we develop, for example, for the fellowship, most of the lectures you can find in YouTube channel of ours, where of course the interactive sessions and the mentoring cannot be captured completely, but the courses are there. Many of the lecturers from the bachelor's and master's program, they give workshops also specifically about these. For students, we also like do a lot of showcase of our projects for people to see, and it is all available in open domain. And if I can add one more thing, not just about the academy, but we also have a GitHub repository where whatever we are developing for nonprofits, not the data, of course, the data is proprietary and it stays with the nonprofit, but the algorithms and models, if we see it is applicable for other use cases, we make them also openly available. And we try not to use proprietary tools in general, but in some cases we cannot escape. But in most of the cases, we try to use open source, and both knowledge and any deliverables or results we openly make available.
That's really cool. So please send us the links to these resources, so we will include them in the show notes. But I'm wondering, maybe you can tell us more about these courses that you have with universities. So, like, what kind of modules do you have there? What is the focus? What do you teach there?
So I do not teach myself. We have a Science to Impact co-directors, two professors. So one is Professor Dimitris Bertimus. He's from MIT Sloan School of Management. And then, of course, in Amsterdam, we have Professor Dick den Hertog. So they are the ones who are leading, let's say, most of the educational programs in universities. And we have other professors like Professor Joachim Gromicho, who also takes sessions. So it's not just us. We have a big extended team behind us who does these courses. Just to give you in a nutshell what the courses talk about. If you look at the data analytics ascendancy metrics, as we call it, you usually start with descriptive analytics, which is just knowing what is happening, and you visualize, you get data clean, all those things. Then you do diagnostic analysis, where you see why things happen and what are the root causes. Then you can do prediction. So you can forecast, you can create early warning systems, you can make machine learning models, you can do some image detection, geospatial analysis. But the last step, which is quite difficult and it is more impactful, is optimization, which is talking about how can we make things better. So I will give you a very quick example of what we did with World Bank, or what we are actually doing now, also continuing to do with World Bank. We went to Timor-Leste together with World Bank to study how the current hospital network in Timor-Leste is, and do people actually have access to primary healthcare centers. So we make a map of all the population points, we map the existing hospitals, we map roads, then we calculate the travel distances, and we see at 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, how many people or what percentage of people have access. Now, this is descriptive. Basically, you have just know the as a scenario, but then we try to do some more analysis to see why it is so. Is it just the road network? Is it new hospitals are required? But then the last step is the prescriptive part, where we are actually using a mathematical model to say, where do you place new hospitals? Now, that is the decision-making point, because knowing all the previous steps is necessary to make that decision, but that model, the optimization model, is what will give you the decision-making capability, saying that put a hospital in this county or a sub-county to give access to X% more population. And this is going to cost you so much. If you had 5 more, you go from 50 to 100%, just example, of course. But giving that power is what we try to incorporate into all our training programs. So how you can actually go from descriptive and diagnostic to this optimization model, and how you can use mathematics or others to actually come up with that decision-making capability. I think that summarizes the core of all our training programs.
Mm-hmm. So from what I understood, like, of course, like you have multiple training programs, and each of them have a different target audience, right? But the ones in these universities, MIT and University of Amsterdam, who is the main target audience? Is it people who, I don't know, who study management, or is it people who study data science and analytics? Like, are they more technical? Are they less technical?
That's a good question. They are technical. So we have, for example, MBA in Big Data program. That's an MBA program, but they have a big data component. So they do learn some of this. We also have a business analytics course, both here and at MIT, the Sloan School of Management. So these are the kind of students who take up these courses. But we are also have been brainstorming, it's not done yet, is on seeing if healthcare or education or these kind of programs can also have such components. But yeah, that's just an idea at this point. But like you asked, in universities, most of our courses are targeting students who are learning business analytics or MBA in big data. So a mix of both management as well as technical.
Yeah, so they already know analytics, and you just show them the application of analytics for nonprofits, right? For
nonprofits, and also maybe a more of optimization kind of problem. So we teach them more prescriptive analytics.
Yes, but the point is that they already know analytics. You just show them how they can apply this to solve real world problems. Okay, that must be quite inspiring, I imagine.
Yeah, that's the feedback we get from students. They are all very excited, and we have a lot of them working with nonprofits during their thesis as well. So that shows that, yeah, they do get inspired and they want to work with nonprofits for their thesis. And interestingly, we also get requests from other students who are not really from these programs, writing to us asking if they can do thesis with us. And yeah, we do encourage that as well. So these are not just open to University of Amsterdam or MIT or any of their affiliate, let's say, universities. We do encourage other students also to come and work with us, do their thesis, to see how they can
actually I see this question coming up in the community in Slack quite often. People come and ask, hey, I need to write a thesis, but I have no idea what to write about. Can you suggest good topics? And yeah, so maybe for these people, for these students who come and ask these questions, how can they contact you and find out how they can help with their skills? How can they take part in this? What's the best way of doing this? Maybe you have like a public list somewhere with possible topics, or like how do they go about this?
Yeah, actually, this is not that, let's say,
structured,
straightforward, because we usually define it together with nonprofits. And the problem can evolve over time. So it's not like there is a list somewhere and people just choose. It have to be, it is a bit more personal, let's say. Just to give one example, so we have a student who says we want to do thesis with us. Then we know that some of our nonprofits have some pressing issues. we send the student and the nonprofit in a brainstorming together with us to define a problem statement which works for both of them, because it's not just that it should match what the nonprofit want, it should also appeal to the students. Because they are investing a lot of time, we want them to get excited about it as well and passionate. So I wouldn't say it is that industrialized yet where they can choose. But they can always reach out to us. In our website, we have a page specifically for researchers and students where they can just write a message. We always get back to them. Or I think you have our LinkedIn page, you have my LinkedIn, Robert's LinkedIn. You can just reach out to us. We are always open to all these. We are not that busy that we don't have time to answer these. So just reach out to us personally.
Yeah, so we'll make sure to include all the links you send us. So what I understood, if, I don't know, there is somebody, a student in India or in Germany or any other country, which is, I don't know, not from any university which is not MIT or University of Amsterdam, if there is a student and if they want to write a thesis with you, what they do is they go to your website, there is a section for students and researchers, and they simply contact you, right? And then you take it from there. Cool.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. And I want to go back a bit. So when we discussed your different educational initiatives, and one of the things you mentioned was that you want to improve data maturity of existing organizations, and you do this by upskilling people and perhaps something more. So I'm really curious how exactly you go about this. So you join, or you work with an organization and you see that the data maturity could be improved. So what are your next steps? What do you do for that?
So first we need to measure to actually improve, right? So we do some series of interviews, like I said. We also have standard questionnaires, standard formats of these measuring the maturity, let's say, and then using the template, we say, okay, currently you are here in terms of people or process in technology. So it is not just about technology, it's about the process and people as well. Then together with the management, we look at their strategy for next 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. Then we say that based on this strategy, this is the roadmap. So we help them create a roadmap for data and digital transformation. So you need to upskill people around these sectors. These are the options for fundraising. These are the training programs. Also, these are the tools that you can internally use to maximize operational efficiency, because sometimes we see that a process is not correct. They have set up something, but it needs some optimization there. Then we help them set it up. So it's not just about training, but it goes much beyond that. I can give one example without naming the nonprofit, is that we saw in a nonprofit that there is already a Azure, a cloud environment set up, but there were configurations which were actually like not optimized, that they are spending more money than what is necessary. A lot of the unused resources or clusters were not turned off, or they are still running, which is running up cost. So there also we have to, first of all, shut them down, reduce cost, but also come up with a standard operating procedure so that next time any team in the organization set it up, they follow a set of criteria. If you are no longer using it, this is what you have to do. So it's not just about shutting it down, optimizing. You have to document it and make them aware that these are the standard operating procedures. So and it is again, I have to go back to what I was saying. It's totally dependent on the nonprofit. Some nonprofits require more investments in people, some more in technology. But we kind of try to tailor it to the nonprofit, the whole process. But usually maturity scan, discussions, and then we create a roadmap. We help them implement the roadmap in stages. So it's not like at once you come and change the whole organization. It's a long process. Usually we have like short-term goals and long-term goals in the roadmap, and we implement it in pieces.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned 3 aspects or 3 dimensions that you measured during the interview. So people, processes, and technology. Maybe can you give us a little bit more insight into what exactly you measure there, like in terms of people, processes, and tech? What exactly you look at?
Like I said, if the strategy of an organization, let's say, is to collect and analyze more health-related indicators. Just one example, they are working in the ground with healthcare professionals and hospitals. We look at, are they collecting the right amount of data? Are they having the capacity to analyze this data? So that is where resources come in.
That's the tech part or people part or process part?
It's actually, let's start with the people part. So if you look at people, so they need people who know how to collect the right amount of data, people who know how to structure the questions, let's say, or even set up that collection system or a mobile app to collect this data.
It's like researchers, right? Like social scientists or people who have this background of doing, asking questions and making sure they are not biased and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. Plus, you need some technical experts or data science people who can help them create or web app and connect it via an API to an analytics part. So it have to be a team. So including, let's say, people who can set up the questionnaire, but also digitally collect the information, put it into a server somewhere, host it. So you need a team who can do all this, right? So that is people part.
So if they have a team, then they are already more or less mature. If there is no team, then you understand, okay, there is a gap, because if you want to collect data, how are you going to do this if there are no people who know how to do this, right?
Yeah. And let's say there are people who can collect data, but there is no analytics capability who can analyze this data to make decisions. Then they are at a different stage in the maturity. But if they don't have any data collection at all, then they are at a different stage. If they do everything, then they are totally at a different stage. So there is groups of categories. Yeah.
Understand. Okay, and then the process part, what is there?
So in the process part, we look at what is the process that the team have to go through to set up the system. So organizationally, do they have all the support required? And are they actually looking at privacy, security? Are they following all the best practices out there? So you can create a form, anybody can create a form, but are they actually following the best practices? Are they following the right order of things? For example, before collecting a form, is there clear guidance from the management or from the team who needs this data on why they want to use this data? So you need to have that process clearly defined and in stages. So yeah, they know that they are doing the right thing at the right order. So that will be the process.
So zero processes means low maturity, right? If there are some processes, then it's, I don't know, mid-level. And if there is a process that explains everything, like I think you mentioned the standard operating procedures, right? If they have these things in place, if everyone knows how exactly to, I don't know, collect data or process data, or I don't know, delete things that are not used, like what are the sequences, what is the sequence of steps you need to do, then it's good, right?
Yeah, it's you are saying three categories, but there is much more. It's not that crisp, right? It's fussy. So yeah, it is not just 3 levels. There is like a whole level of maturity scan, but you are right in the overall picture. Yes.
And then the tech part, I guess, also quite interesting. You mentioned cloud at some point, right? So what are the stages there in the tech dimension?
So in the text, Ben, I would say, do they have, let's say, a collaborative kind of working style? Because in many
Like
cases,
Git,
you will be working, yeah, like Git, of course, but are they all working in their local machines, having local copies of the data, or do they have a centralized one source of truth? Is everything accessible? Is the tech configured properly? Do they, and also from the organizational side, are they aware of the technologies that they require from the management? And we look at that as well, like in terms of technology, not just whether they are using it, but are they aware of what are the alternatives, and they have chosen something that is best. And we look at their tech stack, we look at their analytics stack and see if something needs to be optimized. So that will be technology.
And yeah, I kind of wanted to use this as a segue to talk about different technologies and analytical tools. So what are the tools that you typically see or typically recommend your clients to use? How do you go about, suggesting these tools to the customers? Yeah.
That also depends on the maturity of the organization, but we have a few set of categories, let's say. So if we are looking at data visualization, we do not usually make decisions for the nonprofits, but we give them the options and the pros and cons of each if they don't have anything. Let's say, just let's take the example of data visualization. So within the organization, if they want to make dashboards, many organizations prefer one platform which they already are using and they are aware of, like Power BI or Tableau. So they already have capabilities to use it. Then we try to upskilling them in that itself, because usually they have a shared platform and the organization have invested in it. So we try to upskill them in it. As an organization, we do not have priorities for any technology. To be very fair, we look at the nonprofit and see if they already have capabilities in something. Then we try to identify from our side people who can help the nonprofit in those technologies. And when you say technologies, we also try to tell them if there are open source alternatives or tools like, for example, Python or others that are very easy to configure for data scientists, but then connect them to good visualization and dashboarding so that the managers and executives don't get too overwhelmed with the results that they are afraid to take decisions. So from the technology point of view, we see a lot of dashboarding because many organizations are at the maturity, let's say, beginning their transformation journey. So they are still exploring and visualizing data. And when we need to do machine learning or predictions, we prefer Python or R, depending on the organization. And then when we have to develop a product and deploy it, we suggest them different cloud options like Azure, AWS, GCP, and then we see which fits the organization best. And many nonprofits already have such environment set up. Then we try to stick with that and go with that instead of changing the entire thing, because like I said, we do not really have any priorities. Just to add, from the technology point of view, we see a lot of nonprofits have different types of data. So it's not always like just Excel file with so many rows or data frames. They have a lot of geospatial data. They have a lot of text data. So to handle these, they might need different technologies. For example, for geospatial data, they might need more knowledge in platforms like QGIS. And for text mining in Python itself, they need to know more about packages which are especially dealing with text. So yeah, we try to identify that as well, and then suggest them a tech stack which will fit their requirements.
Okay. Yeah, so just to maybe summarize, you mentioned multiple categories. So you mentioned data visualization. It could be tools like Power BI, Tableau, some open source alternatives. Then you also mentioned machine learning, and then you suggest to go with things like Python or Python packages and R. Then you also mentioned cloud. This is as a way to deploy these machine learning solutions. And then you mentioned like Azure and others. What are the other categories? I think you mentioned like this a few specific examples like geospatial data, text data, and then for them you have like specific tools. Do you have any other categories? Like, I don't know, when it comes to maybe collecting data or storing data or something like that?
So we usually see these categories currently in the nonprofits, like dashboarding, visualization. We have Python, R, and of course for deployment. But by other technologies, do you mean like defining technologies or defining categories? What exactly?
Like categories. What kind of categories are there? Categories are there? Because I imagine that you need to keep the data somewhere. Maybe you have like some data warehousing solutions, or maybe you need to collect data. You need some data tracking solutions, or I don't know. Like, what are the categories you look at?
So data warehousing and let's say storing data, there also we a lot of nonprofits use like open prefer, let's say, open platforms, and there are solutions specifically made for nonprofits, so they tend to use that. And we see a lot of like PostgreSQL databases because yeah, it's open. We also see like Kobo toolbox being used. Actually, it is a digital public good. It is meant for nonprofits to collect data in structured formats, even including images, and store it securely. And they Kobo toolbox have a humanitarian section which deals specifically for nonprofits, and it is registered in the digital public good registry. So there are specific tools that nonprofits do use and prefer, and they are specifically targeted and made for them, which is amazing. And they all follow like what we call the 9 principles of digital development. Yeah, that's one of the resources that maybe the viewers are also interested to see. It's about developing solutions that can scale for specifically in the public and nonprofit sector. So yeah, there are tools like Kobo toolbox that are very frequently used, and also tools like I said, for data collection and databases, they use like PostgreSQL quite frequently as well.
I'm wondering what kind of profiles, like for these tools. I imagine that you need different profiles. I don't know, data analysts would be usually more involved in data visualization and doing like using these data storages, databases like Postgres to analyze the data, maybe also collect data. Then perhaps the data scientist profile. The data scientists are more involved in, I don't know, machine learning, training models, also getting data, deploying them to the cloud. Right? Do you have other profiles, like, I don't know, data engineers or deployment engineers or some other people who are also in the data world?
So it is also totally dependent on the nonprofits, but many of them that we see, if they are at the lower levels of maturity, you see a lot of unicorns, let's say. They try to do everything because like there is a resource gap, right? So there is, and a lot these words, right? Data scientists, data analysts, data engineers, architects, cloud engineers, ML ops, these are all like somehow merged together. There is not a clear definition, I think, even in private sector companies, not always. So yeah, it is not always very clear what roles are there. But if you look at a particular project, I can tell you there will always be in a team, there is always people who are, let's say, collecting, analyzing data. There is always like people who try to make business decisions out of data, right? Who are trying to understand what these models are saying in the and putting it into the context of operations. And usually in nonprofits, we see a lot of research teams who are looking at it from a totally different like research perspective, because they need to know what more data have to be collected and what more use cases can be developed. So we see a lot of data science profiles, but to be very fair, most of the nonprofits are not at the stage where they are deploying like large-scale machine learning models on cloud. It's just not there yet, at least with the nonprofits we work with or the development sector organizations we work with. This is not what we see. Most of them are still trying to figure out or defining key performance indicators. So it's still descriptive, some cases predictive. Just one example is early warning system. So you might have heard the Great Horn of Africa have had the biggest drought in many, many years. And how can you predict or give early warning for these kind of situations so governments can act way well in advance? So early warning systems, a lot of prediction on weather, climate, using satellite-based observations and historic data. So a lot of these things are done. But when it comes to deploying to scale, like large-scale models, I do not see a lot of such applications. So I don't see right now like a lot of ML ops, cloud architects in this sector yet.
I understand. Well, the reason I'm asking about this is right now we have a course. It's happening right now. We're on week 4. The course is about data engineering. So in this course, we show how to use different tools for collecting, storing, and processing data. So the focus is more like how do you move data from one place to another place in a reliable and repeatable way, reproducible. And then as a part of the project, they will need to do a dashboard. And yeah, so what I want to ask is like people with this kind of profile, if they want to take part in some of your initiatives, how can they do this? Or do you even need people with this kind of skills?
We do need them, definitely, but it is not like nonprofits are going to directly hire them, because it's not like there is a constant source of, not all nonprofits, let's say there are some who require this, but because there is no constant source of these kind of projects, right? But we do see some of these applications, and I can give you one very simple example. So we work with a researcher who have developed a very amazing solution for smallholder farmers in Brazil. And what we want to do is take, and it's a very impactful model they have demonstrated on the ground. But how do you build that gap between research and then scaling it and deploying it is, we want to create like a mobile application that will fetch all the required data and process it, immediately give results so that they can immediately act on it. And this have to happen in a because it's not just a visualization, we are running machine learning models at the back to give those results, right? So we were looking for the right set of people to support such a project. Another example, I told you in Timor-Leste, we went and we were optimizing for the location of healthcare facilities, right? And we see that a lot of these use cases recurrently appear. For example, we worked together with the World Health Organization during the COVID pandemic in Nepal, and they wanted to know where should we place COVID test labs. So it's a similar problem to what Timor-Leste did, but the data stack is different. So we are actually building a web application where in the backend, these optimization models will run and give you results depending on the data and the country that you feed. And for bigger countries, it is actually a very resource intensive problem, because if you look at Vietnam, we try to do this in Vietnam for hospital healthcare facility access. The population is huge. It's a large area to run this optimization model. It requires a lot of resources, right? So yeah, we do need machine learning engineers for specific projects, and we need these deployment capabilities. And we always are looking for such people who want to join this mission, but also be aware that this is not like constantly we are looking for these resources. It comes when such interesting projects come to us.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any open positions right now?
Um,
Not necessarily data engineering, but data analytics too, because there is a question if you have any, if there will be in the future any open positions. But I guess you can also talk about if you have them now.
Right now, no, not as far as not until today morning. Let's say things change very fast. But what we also try to do is we have a list of people and resources who we can tap into. So when a project comes, we can reach out to them. But also, like I said, we have a lot of private sector organizations who are our partners. So one of the examples is Ortec, and Ortec is one of the founding partners of Analytics for a Better World. Together with University of Amsterdam, they are a mathematical optimization company. We also have are currently working with a lot of other organizations who support us. And when such requirements come, we first reach out to them and see, do you have resources who can work on this project for 4 months or 5 months, or sometimes 1 week or 2 weeks, depending on the project, of course. But we would really love to welcome others who would like to contribute as well, and see if we can work together. And I'm always looking for opportunities to connect with people who are inspired to join us.
And this is the same question, the first part of this. How many data analysts currently work at Analytics for a Better World?
Like I said, we are very new. Last year we set up, and we currently have a core team of let's say 4 people, core team. So we have managing director Robert, I'm the CTO. We have Professor Dick Hertog and Professor Dimitris from, they are co-chairing, or they are science to impact co-directors, and they lead research, academy, and others. We also have other data scientists who are working like kind of full-time with us. One is Claudia. She's based in University of Amsterdam. We have Britt, who's a PhD student. We also have other researchers supporting us, but we are a very small core team. But we have a huge extended team of researchers from universities. We have supporters from our organizations that are supporting us. So just to give an example, during the academy, we had more than 20 professionals from private sector giving courses. So all of them came from our network, from the people who are in organizations. And if I can look at the number of projects, we currently have around running parallelly like 4 or 5, and all of them are staffed with like 3 or 4, but it's not always data scientists. We have sometimes data scientists, data engineers, and others. So we do have an extended network and a big team, but our core team is very small.
Yeah, thanks. And then we have a question from Adonis, but I should have asked this question earlier, so I don't know if you'll be able to answer it in 2 minutes, but we can try. So the question is, which are the most important factors that help organizations become more data-driven? Organizations that you worked with and organizations that perhaps start from zero data maturity, and then eventually become data-driven. So what are the most important factors that help them?
I think long-term strategy to include data in their portfolio, because you asked what are the factors. If I have to explain that, 2 minutes is not enough. So I'll tell you what is the main factor that we see is that organizations which have a strategy of and understanding that data is required are motivated to come up with projects and want to upskill their people to become more data intensive in their work. And they need to make the right investments. And for investments, you need drive also from the organization perspective. And like I said before, the investments have to be in 3 steps, like people, process, and it's not steps, but in 3 sectors: people, process, and technology. And understanding this as an organization is the most important thing, because we see a lot of value in data and analytics being added into the public sector organization. And we believe truly, from what we have seen in the last year, nonprofits can benefit equally from data. But as an organization, most of them know that data is important, but do not have made it a strategic part of their goal yet in many cases. So I think that that clear vision and strategy to include data is the first step. After that comes all the investments on people, process, technology, and clear understanding of why and how data can be used. And that's what we try to do with our academy. Making them realize how can data help. That's not always very obvious, I think. And you don't immediately see results, right? Especially in nonprofits, you cannot see the healthcare system in a country improving in one day. It takes years to show real impact. Of course, there are output and outcomes from programs and upskilling initiatives, but to see the change, it takes time. So to have that patience and long-term vision is equally important. And thanks for the question. It's a really good one. But I wish I had more time to.
Yeah, I should have asked that a bit earlier. Maybe the last one. So this is usually the question I ask everyone, is if you have any good book or resource that you can recommend to the listeners. I think one thing is you mentioned all these educational initiatives that you have. That would be a great resource that you probably can recommend, that you will recommend to the listeners. Is there anything else that you would add to that?
Resources, for me, I always read a lot of technical stuff. So I follow, like, for example, I spend every day reading at least 30 minutes towards data science. It's very tech, but I really love it. And on books, I can recommend a book that I just finished reading. It's called The Culture Map. It's about how different people from across the world, because we usually live in our bubble. We know what is happening in our neighborhood. We know what is happening in TV, in media, but the world is so much bigger and different cultures. You have to understand the context, how people think, lead, and get things done. It's actually a really good book called The Culture Map. And I am also currently in one of the books that I'm reading is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I find it also very interesting. I do have a lot of technical resources, not just the our resources, let's say from Analytics for a Better World, but others as well that could be interesting. I will share this across with you, and maybe you can send it to your subscribers. I think it will be useful.
We will definitely include all the links all the resources that we talked about in this interview, and I think there were quite a few of them in the show notes, in the description. And yeah, with that, I guess we are a bit over time. So thanks a lot for joining us today, for sharing your expertise with us. Thanks everyone for joining us today, for asking questions. And yeah, it was fun. Thanks.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was really good chatting with you as well.
Yeah. And yeah, have a great weekend, everyone.